category number 2, growth. Part 1, describe variants of normal growth, such as constitutional delay and familial short stature. So constitutional growth delay is just a pause in growth, usually before puberty. And the parents may have had the same thing. They may say, you know, I grew a little later than my classmates, or, you know, I remember I kind of slowed down right before I went through puberty, but I caught back up. Constitutional delay. Slowed down a little bit, but I caught back up. Familial short stature. I quit growing and I never caught back up. Okay? The patient quits growing and they don't catch back up. That's the difference between those two things. Failure to thrive. We're moving on to the next learning objective. See, I told you this would be quicker. Failure to thrive is crossing of 2 major percentile lines on the growth chart, okay? Or failure to maintain normal growth trajectory along the growth chart. If you made it this far in your pediatrics rotation, you should have looked at a growth chart or two so you know what I'm talking about. Overweight greater than the 85th percentile for BMI. Obesity greater than the 95th percentile for BMI. Again, it says using BMI and standard growth curves. We covered that. Differential diagnosis of an infant or child with failure to thrive. Why don't you pause this video here and make a little differential diagnosis there. So stop. Hammer time. Okay, now that you're back with me, here's my differential diagnosis. I'm going to go systems-based for failure to thrive. So let's start with social, and that would just be they're not feeding the baby, or perhaps there is a knowledge gap in how they should be feeding the baby, or poverty perhaps. Maybe they don't have enough milk to get through the month, so they're diluting the formula, and maybe they just don't have enough to feed the baby or feed the child. So that would certainly be on my differential. There could be a neurological process that is inhibiting the baby's ability to eat. So the baby could be choking or aspirating due to a difficulty with their suck swallow, due to neurological immaturity, due to a lack of a hunger cue because of some neurological disease or process. Okay. Cardiac, heart failure or congenital heart disease could certainly cause failure to thrive. If your heart's having to work super hard to oxygenate or perfuse your body, if you have a low oxygen saturation or baseline hypoxia, say your oxygen runs 80%, you know, you're going to have a lot higher metabolic demand. You know, really your heart's going to be working a lot harder to try to perfuse your body. You're going to need a lot more energy. You may not be able to eat because you're trying to pant hard to perfuse your body. That child will likely have failure to thrive. Speaking of panting hard, any pulmonary disease, chronic lung disease, cystic fibrosis, those kids are likely to have failure to thrive as well. Cystic fibrosis can also cause malabsorption and GI tract issues. Short gut would be another cause. There are other GI causes, malabsorption, celiac disease, milk protein allergy, soy allergy, any of the food allergies or intolerances could cause failure to thrive. Metabolic disorders of various causes could also cause failure to thrive. Oral aversions or feeding aversions, kids with really bad reflux could have failure to thrive as well. Okay, be able to interpret a normal growth curve and recognize abnormal growth patterns. Kids should follow a curve. It doesn't have to be on one of the specific lines, but they need to follow the general shape of the curve. And if they're not following the general shape of the curve, we need to figure out what the problem is, right? They're not following the general shape of the curve, there's a reason why. This would also be, even though this isn't specifically in the learning objectives, you need to review, you know, an infant is going to double their birth weight roughly by 4 months, triple their birth weight by a year. You need to understand the period of most rapid growth and at what age that occurs. I'm not going to tell you that. You have to go look that up, or you should remember it from my lecture in, I don't remember if it was first or second year at this point, but the period of most rapid growth during birth to adolescence, what the period of most rapid growth is. How much weight does a baby gain? We talked about that a little bit in the last video. So we're going to lose the first couple of weeks of life. We should be back to birth weight by 2 to 3 weeks. Then we're going to gain an ounce a day or 30 grams a day. Let's see. I think we've covered, in general, most of the growth stuff. I'm sure there's more that you need to know. Again, this is not intended to be a comprehensive review. Really dive into those learning objectives.